Well, the difference is the financial position of the United States in 1980 versus the financial position now. I mean, the national debt in 1980 was only about $1 trillion. It's 31 times that size now. The Fed's balance sheet, didn't even really have much of a balance sheet back then, as opposed to the $9 trillion balance sheet it has right now. The levels of debt throughout the economy are unprecedented compared to 1980. Back in 1980, the U.S. economy was still a creditor nation. Now we're the world's biggest debtor nation. We were still running trade surpluses in 1980, not record trade deficits. Debt to GDP, I forget what it was, maybe down like 40% or something like that. Now it's like 120%. So it's night and day. We're not in a position to do the right thing. I mean, we are, but only with far more adverse consequences than what we suffered in the early 1980s. And I just don't think there's the political will anywhere in Washington, including the Federal Reserve, to allow that to happen. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get away with it. We're actually going to end up with something worse, because what we're going to have is runaway or hyperinflation. That is what we're likely to suffer as a result of the Fed and the government's unwillingness to let us swallow the bitter tasting medicine. So we end up dying from an inflationary disease that they refuse to allow the cure. But if you go back to the 1970s, gold started the decade at $35 an ounce, and it ended at around $850. Now think about that percentage gain. That is enormous. Now the reason that gold stopped going up in early 1980s was because of Volcker and those 20% interest rates. Well, we're nowhere close to that right now. I mean, gold is closer to 1970 than 1980 as far as where it is in the cycle. And so this is going to be an explosive rally that will rival the percentage gains, I think, of the 1970s. And that is just enormous. If you're talking about silver, I mean, silver was really about $1 an ounce in 1970. A silver dollar was worth $1. That's about an ounce of silver. And those silver dollars were trading for like $50 a piece by the peak in 1980. It was a 50-fold increase in the price of silver. What would happen to silver if you took it up 50 times? Silver's at 20. So you're talking about $1,000 silver to have something to rival what happened in 1970. So look, there's a long way for these metals to go. And everything that's happening now is just noise as we're bouncing along the bottom. If you also look at the bond market, you can see the answer. I mean, look at a 30-year U.S. Treasury. It's yielding 3%. Now, inflation is 9%. Why would somebody loan the U.S. government money for 30 years at 3%? Well, they must believe that 9% inflation is going to go away very quickly, and that the average rate of inflation over the next 30 years will be maybe 2%, which means there's a 1% yield. Although why anybody would take a 1% return over 30 years, that makes no sense either. But it's clear that the bond market is confident that inflation is going to go away. I think the gold market is making the same mistake. Gold traders are looking at the Fed's commitment to fighting inflation, and they believe that they've got the resolve, that they're going to do it, that they're going to get rid of inflation, and they're going to do it with high interest rates, which are going to be a headwind for gold. And if gold is an inflation hedge, and there's no inflation to hedge because the Fed is committed to get rid of it, well, that's what's keeping the price of gold down. But when investors in both markets, both the bond market and the metals markets, understand that this is all talk, it's a bluff, that the Fed is not going to be able to fight inflation because the severity of the rate hikes that would actually be required, because what they've done so far is wholly insufficient. The type of monetary policy that would actually be required to get rid of inflation is never going to happen. And of course, we're never going to get rid of inflation without the cooperation of the government. The government has to substantially cut government spending, and that's never going to happen. They're going to keep on increasing government spending. So when the markets figure out that this is all a ruse, that inflation is not going away, it's here to stay, and it's going to be much, much higher than 2%, maybe even double digits as far as the eye can see, the bond market is going to implode, and the gold market is going to explode, right? Bond prices are going to crash, and gold's going to soar. But the reason that's not happening now is because investors don't get it. They just do not understand the predicament that the economy is in. They don't understand the position that the Federal Reserve is in, and they are overestimating the Fed's ability to do what they claim they're going to do.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.